You are listening to the Walking Leader podcast, episode number 262.
Hello, I am your host, David Guerra, and I welcome you back to another episode of the Walking Leader podcast. As always, the Walking Leader podcast is for you, current and future leaders, to help give you the tools to help you succeed as a leader in your organization as well as in your personal life. The tools of the Walking Leader focus on getting you up and out from behind your desk and out onto the front lines where those you lead, because that's where they are every day. They're in the trenches, day in and day out. And as a leader, attention leaders, in case no one told you, I'm telling you now, it is your responsibility to know how the battle is going, and there is no better way to know than to be out on the front lines where the bullets are flying. So get out there. And now, without delay, let's get this episode started. Where is the fun in doing things the exact same way you've always done them? Why should anyone bother to grow every day and be better than the day before? Where is the work that has to get put in to make ourselves the best version of ourselves that we can be? By always going on the defense, we cannot truly face our challenges head on. By putting up walls and building battlements, we can only hurl spears and arrows at those that come to challenge us, whether they are invited to or not. Spending all that time on defense and ready to attack leaves no time to be better, no time to challenge yourself, and most certainly no time to grow. Again, this is the amateur mindset hard at work. And by remaining in the amateur state of mind, we do not see the gift of feedback that many bring us. Sure, some of those gifts might be the wrong size or out of date or just flat out wrong, but they are a gift nonetheless. Solicit it or not, treat all feedback, criticism or not, as a gift. Professionals welcome the feedback, the criticisms, and coaching as the gift that they are. The feedback should always be welcome, whether the intention is an honest and true and virtuous intention or the opposite. Accept all comers. Yes, even those nasty individuals that preface every criticism with, "Who does he think he is?" or "Can you believe he thinks he can do that?" and plenty of other not-so-pleasant lead-ins to their volley of criticism that is sure to come. Now, don't forget, there's always a little something constructive in their disdain. You might have to really look for it, but there's a little something there. Look for it. Now, professionals and amateurs have a common concern when it comes to receiving feedback. That commonality is silence or lack of feedback. When no one is saying anything, then watch out. Watch out in that you do not have the strong enough stance for people to take a side either for or against you. Their silence means they do not understand you, or they don't understand you enough to make a clear decision on where to stand. Thus, by their silence, they are acknowledging what you are lacking. Yes, take their silence to heart. Let silence sting. Let it sting, but don't let it fester. Now, for anyone that wants to move from a place of an amateur to a professional mindset, you can no longer afford the luxury of lack of feedback. Feedback is an absolute must. Imagine if Brian Epstein had passed on the Beatles because they sounded just like every other wedding band in Liverpool. They never would have met George Martin, and the musical landscape that would pale in comparison to what it is today. Yeah, there would be no David Bowie. No Monkees, no Sex Pistols, no Duran Duran, no Police, no NWA, no Digital Underground, no Run DMC, definitely no Eminem, no Lady A or Lady Antebellum or whatever they're calling themselves today, no Justin Timberlake, no Demi Lovato, and so on and so on. And if you think I'm wrong, seriously think about this. The Beatles were responsible for the birth of so many genres of modern music that it is unfathomable to consider their absence and the repercussions of never having the legacy they left behind. Now, each and every musician before and after the Beatles was given feedback and obviously criticized, but each of them took that feedback and criticism as a gift. If you know anything about David Bowie, this guy was constantly evolving and changing because he wanted to keep the attention he initially gained and wanted to build more upon it. Think about this first. David Bowie took on multiple personas over his career to accomplish the feat many try, but few ever succeed. And folks, that's real simple. It's to remain relevant. See, David Bowie was Ziggy Stardust, Aladdin Sane, the Thin White Duke, the Goblin King, the blind prophet. But through it all, he was still just David Robert Jones. That's his real name. Now, personal note and full disclosure. I did not become a fan of Bowie until late in my high school days. And then when I did become a fan, I have not waned. I still am. Even after his passing, I'm still a huge fan because of what he did and because of what the Beatles did for him. Now, Bowie and all other professionals love to be seen and heard. Silence is not tolerated and most certainly cannot last long. It is when the chirp of the crickets begins to get louder and louder. That is when they go looking for more feedback. It is the feedback that is not only accepted as a gift, but ultimately it drives the professional mindset individual towards the next big thing. Now, of course, there are so many professionals that tend to ignore the feedback and criticisms. They simply say nonsensical things like, consider the source, or what do they know about what I do? Then they turn their nose up and walk away and from something that has so much potential behind the words in the feedback or criticism. Now, those individuals are the ones that are affectionately known as the never-beens. I mean, of course, they might have achieved a hit, but those groups, those individuals that suddenly find themselves sitting on top of the Billboard 100 charts for at most several weeks are kings and queens of all they survey. Props to them. But then just as quick as they reach the top, they fall off the charts and sadly, they're never heard from again. Sure, many of them try again. They try to repeat the same process and the steps that shot them to the top only to fizzle out and again never make it. All the while, others that have made it, especially in the industry long enough, especially those that were in the industry long enough to know and do what has to be done and do what it takes. And they will listen to the feedback and criticisms even from their fans, because they recognize the fans are the ones that put them there. So they pay attention. Sadly, there are far too many bands or individuals that want so desperately to return to the top 40 that they will never look or listen to those that are just there to help. Meanwhile, the other professionals that want more, well, they eagerly await the arrival of the latest feedback and are chomping at the bit for the latest review from their critics. Whether the reviews are good or bad, it's besides the point. What they want the feedback. They want the constructive or destructive feedback. A professional knows that it is all part of life. You put yourself out there, you get what they give you. The professional works with what is given to them and to make a better product or service. The professional knows not to discount the words, but also does not need to get bogged down by the individual giving the criticism or the feedback. If those that are saying the words have never played the game or cracked open a book on the subject that is being presented, the professional sees all that. They know all that, and it is something to consider. However, the same applies to coaches. For example, if they never played or coached at your professional level, then how could they know what you are working through or with? However, the professional mindset individual is on the hunt to extract something of value from that feedback, that criticism or coaching, especially if that something is a basic, it's fundamental to what the professional is trying to accomplish. And no matter at what mindset level you are, amateur or professional, you will encounter feedback. People will give it to you whether you ask for it or not. I have discovered that people are more apt to give unsolicited feedback because they feel it is their quote-unquote duty to tell you. Now, usually they will present a negative or the negative and or very rarely add anything good or positive. They will usually preface their feedback with, now, don't take this the wrong way, knowing fully well that is what they are saying and that's what they're about to say and that's what they're about to give you. So get ready for their onslaught. Now, of course, the U.S., and this quote is coming from the U.S. Office of Personnel Management. Since people respond better to information presented in a positive way, feedback should be expressed in a positive manner. That is not to say that that information should be sugar-coated. It must be accurate, factual, and complete. Again, U.S. Office of Personnel Management. Now, we cannot teach everyone on how to properly deliver feedback. Well, but this is where you come in. You, with the professional mindset, You have to learn how to accept feedback as a gift. You are using the nuggets that are given to you to create a better today for yourself and those that follow you. Therefore, it is up to you to lead by example. Lead by example. And show others the way to not just receive feedback, but also how to properly give that feedback. And giving feedback is definitely easier to receive than it is to receive. And it's definitely easier than someone just saying, here, take this, and then dumping their inadequacies on you in their thinly veiled attempts at calling it feedback or constructive criticism. See, when giving proper feedback, people will be more apt to come to you again and again because they know you're giving them more than just well, this is what I think, instead of, this is what I saw. There's a difference in those two. The same applies with coaching, where the amateur will say, here's what you did wrong. The professional will say, give this a try and here's why. Again, there's a difference in those two. So again, it's the way you're presenting it, and it's the mindset behind the way you're presenting it. So it is all about how you give the feedback and how you receive it. Giving and receiving feedback as professional is certainly going to go further than as an amateur. Unfortunately, as I stated earlier, the ability to change how one accepts, processes, and uses feedback is one that can only come through experience, knowledge, and wisdom. You have to experience the process sometimes numerous times. You have to do it numerous times to get an understanding that there is a better way of handling and processing the feedback given to you. Then can your wisdom be used in aiding yourself to elevate yourself to the next level on your journey to achieving a professional mindset. Well, that's it for this episode of the Walking Leader Podcast. If you have any comments or questions, please don't hesitate. Drop me an email at dave@daveguerra.com or leave me a voice message at the Walking Leader hotline at 956-720-0060. Or reach out to me on Twitter at Dave Guerra, all one word. That's the @ symbol, Dave Guerra. That's my name, and I look forward to hearing from you. Also, I want to thank you for your time. I do appreciate you making it to this point of the episode. I am David Guerra, author of the books The Walking Leader and Great to Follow, and I invite you to subscribe to the Walking Leader Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, and Stitcher. You can find all those links on the daveguerra.com website. Lastly, I want to remind you to always go beyond the grind and go beyond the hustle, because that's the only way to be the walking leader and a leader that is truly great to follow. And until next time, I thank you.
The Walking Leader Podcast is a David Guerra presentation.